All right, guys, welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Nathan Warren. I'm your health expert here locally in Chattanooga, and I'm super excited to have you guys here on Wellness Radio today. I'm going to be going over the good, bad, and ugly of inflammation and what are some of the top strategies that you can do to quell your inflammation, to get down your inflammation, to see improvements in the way that your body feels, the way that your body moves. And again, it's all about inflammation. Now, when you hear the title at first, people are like, what? Like the good of inflammation? Yes, the good of inflammation. There is some times where inflammation is actually fantastic for the body. So I'm going to be going over those. What's the difference between both good and bad inflammation? And we're going to be diving into the ins and outs of it, what you can do about it. So if this is your first time tuning into Wellness Radio, I'm super excited that you guys are here. I'm super excited that you guys have decided to join me on Saturday morning, when there's a million other things that you guys could be doing, but choosing to learn about your health, to me, puts you guys in a whole different category, especially when we look at the way our society is right now. We're a society that says, oh, you know what, there's nothing I can do for my health. It's just I'm a victim of my health issues. And you guys don't think that way, and I love that about you. So I'm super excited that you've joined me today. And so if you're just now learning about us, guys, you can check us out more on Facebook at Drs. Warren, DRSWARREN, or go to our website, drswarren.com, DRSWARREN.com, and you can check out past radio shows. You can read some of our blog posts, and you can just check out, what we're about and what we stand for. And so, just kind of in a nutshell, what do Dr. Rebecca and I, do? What's our foundation? What do we stand for? We believe the body is created to heal itself, and again, that's not an opinion; that's a fact. If you get a cut on your leg, what happens over the next 15, 20 minutes, you don't have to think about it. There's already an intelligence inside every single cell of your body that we believe God put there and made you absolutely fantastic. We also believe that when the body reacts to its environment, whether internal or external environment, that symptoms can show up, right? And so instead of treating the symptom, we believe in getting down to the root cause of your health issues. And so when you get to the root cause, you get to not only see those symptoms start to go away, but you get to see health and wellness restored, vitality restored. And that's what it's all about, again, when it comes to our health. So that is what Dr. Rebecca and I stand for with Wellness Radio. We want you guys to, take on the mindset that, hey, you know what? I'm in control of my health. You know what? I can actually do things to change the way that my health works on a regular basis. So again, today's show, if you're just now tuning in, is all about inflammation. So those of you that are dealing with low back pain, neck pain, headaches, maybe you're somebody that deals with things like fibromyalgia. Maybe you're dealing with chronic pain in different parts of the body. Maybe you're somebody that deals with digestive issues, right? Maybe it's ulcerative colitis, Crohn's disease, irritable bowel syndrome. Maybe you're dealing with, inflammation of specific small joints, right, in the body, like your fingers or your toes or your ankles. Guys, that's what I want to go over today, is how we can battle inflammation, when to know if inflammation is good or if inflammation is bad, because yes, sometimes inflammation can be a good thing. And we're going to go through the ins and outs of inflammation. So if you're on Facebook with us, ask me any questions that you want, especially during the commercial break. I like to dive into, specific questions that you guys may have about your health or about your family's health, and we will make sure that we address those throughout the show. So as we're diving into this, one of the things I used to talk about, from especially at the beginning of practice, when I would actually stand up and do things like X-ray reports for patients, and we'd do them in big groups so that people could learn kind of the foundations of health, which I actually thought was one of the best things that I ever did, because you get to educate your patient base. When somebody comes in to see me in the office or Dr. Rebecca in the office, we know that we're gonna want to work on getting you healthy and well and finding out the root cause. But I also know the number one thing that I can do for an individual that walks through my doors is educate them, right? Give them the knowledge on how amazing their body actually is and how it's designed to heal. That's the number one thing that we can do for a human being. That's it. That's the number one thing. And that is my primary goal when somebody walks into my office doors, is to educate them on how amazing they actually are, how fearfully and wonderfully they are actually made. And so one of the things I used to go over in our x-ray reports is I would always talk about how there's a certain time when it is actually appropriate for inflammation, and why we can't just base our health on how we feel and how we look. And so that's a hard concept to get, right? Like, I mean, especially when you're looking at commercials on TV, commercials on the radio, magazine articles, news articles, posts on all the different media outlets on how our goal should be to get rid of symptoms, right? You're seeing drug commercials, you're seeing all of these different things that are dealing with symptoms, right? In the realm of medication and our medical system, their whole goal is to reduce symptoms. If you come in with high blood pressure, their goal is to say, okay, let's bring down the high blood pressure, right? And so that's why they introduce medication to bring down. And again, at certain times, that's appropriate, right? If somebody walks into my office with a blood pressure of 200 and something over 100 and something, and they're in pretty poor health, guess what? That's an appropriate time probably for medication use. But again, it's to cover up a symptom, because if you stop taking that drug, the symptom is still there, right? And so our goal is to say, hey, you know what? Your body's reacting this way for a reason. What's the root cause of that? And understanding that the body always makes a good decision based on its environment, right? And so, the one thing that we would continuously go over in those x-ray reports is that pain and how we feel and how we look is not the primary, goal that we're looking for. And so that's a hard concept to swallow, right? We always want to feel great. We always want to look great. But if that's all we focus on with our health, remember, we're missing the top disease killers in the United States, like heart disease, right? Which kills 650 plus thousand people a year in the United States alone. We're missing cancer, right? Which kills another 500,000, people in the United States alone. So looking at these top two diseases there, the thing they have in common is you can feel great and you can look great up until the point of either having a heart attack or being diagnosed with cancer. So we can't base it on how we feel and how we look. And we actually had, I'll never forget, about 2 years ago, we had a patient that came in that was like, sat in front of us. I don't really feel, a ton of pain. That's why I've never, actually been into, a chiropractic office or a wellness office. So I never really thought I've had an issue, but, I heard you guys on the radio, so I thought I'd come and check you out. And I remember kind of going through some of her history and kind of breaking some of the things that she thought were minor down. She was on 5 different medications because, again, these minor problems that would show up, she just would go to her doctor. They would cover it up with a drug. And so I'll never forget, because about 2 weeks into care, she was then diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. And it was one of those that again, it was really, really hard because you're just starting off with a patient. And so to build up the rapport, to build up the trust, to say, hey, there's a lot of things that we can do here, at the stage 4, colon cancer level, like, let's go after that. It was hard to really build up that trust in just a couple weeks. And so there was a lot of, she went through mostly conventional therapy. And I'll never forget, man, it was about, a 4.5 week time period, and she passed away. And it was one of those kind of heart-wrenching moments, but it was also a learning moment where I realized, oh yeah, that's right. Like, when I say that you can't base your health on how you feel and how you look, like, I mean it. Like, you really can't. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue, again, feeling great. We shouldn't pursue, looking the way that maybe we want to, or maybe the way our bodies are designed to be. But it can't be our primary focus. Our primary focus has to be on function. And sometimes when the body is trying to function the way it's supposed to, it doesn't always feel great, right? And it actually may even be painful when the body is actually functioning the way it's supposed to. So let me give you an example, and this is where we get into our topic today, looking at inflammation. If I am let's say I'm a track star and I'm a runner, and I am running down the track as fast as I possibly can, and maybe there's a little pebble in the track, and I step on it and I roll my ankle, right? What's going to happen immediately is you are going to see, inflammation develop, right, within that ankle joint, right? So you are actually going to see the ankle joint have inflammation in it. It's going to swell. It's going to get hot. It's going to be painful. And so why is that? The body's saying, hey, number one, I want you to stay off of it because I need to heal. Number two, it swells so that you can get things like blood flow to that area and send, basically your cleanup cells to that area, things like macrophages, to actually clean up the debris and the damage around there. And so the inflammation is a healing process. But even in our medical field, what's the first thing that we're taught to do? Where I remember learning, in school that we have to do, RICE, right? Rest, ice, compression, elevation. And the whole goal was to reduce the inflammatory process that's going on there. And so I started asking myself, that doesn't even, does that even make sense? If I sprain my ankle, and there's inflammation that is meant to be there to help clean it up and heal, surely that can't be the whole story, right? And we're going to dive into that, why actually I've changed my mind on acute inflammation in injury cases, and we'll kind of go over what is it that I do when I have inflammation and how to actually deal with it. So I've got to go into my first commercial break here on Wellness Radio. If you guys have any questions, again, join me live on Doctors Warren on Facebook. I love to answer questions, especially during the commercial break for you guys. And also, too, if you want to come in and see us in the office, our girls are standing by. You can give them a call. You can set up an appointment where you come in and see me or Dr. Rebecca, or you can do a virtual appointment as well if you live somewhere else in the United States. We love to do virtual appointments as well, too. So, again, guys, that number is 423-362-5360. Again, that's 423-362-5360. If you're dealing with any type of inflammation, any type of pain, any type of chronic problem, guys, that's something that we like to get down to the root cause of. So again, doctorswarren.com. Join me on Facebook Live if you're listening on the radio. It's a lot more fun, a lot more interactive. But again, this is Wellness Radio, and I'll be right back after the break. All right, guys, welcome on Facebook Live. I hope you guys are doing fantastic this morning. I want to be able to answer all your questions. So again, please post below if you have questions about, maybe it's your particular case about inflammation. Maybe you've been dealing with headaches. Maybe you're dealing with small joint pain. Maybe you're dealing with pain all over the body. Maybe it's a loved one. Maybe it's a child. Whatever it is, again, I would love to be able to answer those questions for you as we go throughout the show. Now, one of the things I was talking about just a second ago, dealing with inflammation, again, is there's an appropriate time for it, okay? And I would even say a great time for inflammation. So, I think it was about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe 8 months ago, I actually, playing soccer, pretending like I'm 20 again, I sprained my ankle pretty bad. So it was, it definitely had to be like around a grade 3 sprain. It was absolutely huge. And I remember doing it, at the facility. And at first, again, because I was pretending like I was 20 again, at first when I did it, I'm like, man, that really, really hurt. I went over to the side and I've got like my tight, kind of compression soccer socks on. I had a little bit of it already wrapped up, towards the ankle. And so it wasn't quite swelling as much as I was expecting it to. And so in the moment you're playing and your adrenaline's running, I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can play on this a little bit more. So I went back out, tried to play on it a little bit more, finished the game and thinking, okay, it's just kind of a minor thing. I get in the car. As soon as I get home, and we're talking about maybe 15 minutes, it was absolutely huge, and I could feel my heart pounding down into the ankle itself. And I remember thinking, number one, Nathan, you are an absolute idiot for trying to continue to play. But then number two, man, this sucks. Like, what am I going to do? Trying to adjust people the next week and do all these different things. And so my first thought is, what can I do, right, to reduce this inflammation? And then I had to take a step back, and my second thought is, wait a second, that inflammation is there for a reason, right? The pain is there for a reason. Now, what I'm about to go over with you is not always something that people want to hear, right? It's not always something that people want to do. But for me, this is kind of my first, time where I really said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to try to take care of inflammation in this moment. Like, I'm going to let my ankle do what it needs to do to heal, right? And so, I had one of my orthopedic friends check it out. Actually, it was like the next day, probably the next afternoon, to check it out. And he's like, yeah, this thing is probably, a grade 2, maybe grade 3 sprain. It's pretty bad. Like, let's get you a boot. Do you need crutches? And I'm like, you know what? No, I had like this little cane thing. I'm like, I'm good. I'm just going to kind of let it rest. And so let it rest for a couple days in massive amounts of pain, right? Because I did not try to reduce inflammation. No, I did not take turmeric. No, I did not take, any type of, natural anti-inflammatory. Again, I let it run its course. And Dr. Rebecca's like, you're a little crazy because, it doesn't seem like you're sleeping as well as you were. It doesn't seem like you're getting, that you're getting restorative sleep. But I let it go, right? And here's what's really cool. I let it go. The pain, kind of started to diminish over the course of about a week. And I was actually able to start playing soccer again in about 2.5 weeks. When I saw my orthopedic friend again, he couldn't believe that I was back playing as soon as I was, because I let the body naturally do what it's supposed to. And we're going to dive into more of that. Hey guys, welcome back to Wellness Radio. I am your health expert, Dr. Nathan Warren. We're talking all about inflammation today. If you're live on Facebook, I even went over my little story about an inflammatory injury I suffered, a sprained ankle that again was around a grade 2, grade 3 ankle sprain, and I did my own experiment, and I let it go, and I let my body do what it was supposed to do without initially trying to ice it, without initially trying to again bring down quote unquote inflammatory levels in my body. And I let my body do what it's supposed to. And in 2.5 weeks, I was back out there playing again. It was one of the best things that I've ever done. Now, I'm going to kind of give you a timeline here though, because when it comes to an acute injury, I understand that if you let's say you tear a ligament in the knee, or you tear a rotator cuff muscle, I understand that's probably a pain level that's much worse than what my ankle sprain was. Okay, so I'm not telling you that there's never a time and a place to try natural inflammation reducers, and I'll go over that in a minute. I'm not even telling you that there's not a time and a place for medication, if the pain is that great. But what I am telling you is that sometimes with your little aches, your little bruises, your little, kind of acute injuries maybe that you have at the gym, sometimes maybe it's a good thing if you let your body do what it's supposed to do, because some inflammation is an actual good thing for the body. And one of these was actually discussed. Dr. Barry Sears was a doctor and also a researcher who published a study. This was about a year ago, and again, he published a study that was looking at inflammation and how it's actually involved in our healing processes. How inflammation, even at a cellular level, is involved in things like fighting off, bacterial infections, viral infections, things like cancer, and even things like, again, acute injury. So inflammation is not always a bad thing. It can be great in an acute situation. We need it to happen because that is how we get things like macrophages, sometimes how we get natural killer cells. And really what they found throughout the study is the reason for this is the balance between omega-6 fatty acids and omega-3 fatty acids and how they respond inside the body. And so again, we're going to dive more into that here in just a little bit, but understanding the mechanism that's involved, again, in the healing process is a big deal. Now, Sonia says, so do I or do not ice with a sprained ankle or knee injury from the gym? Again, for me, especially in the first few days, I don't ice that injury. I let the injury, again, I let my body do what it needs to do as far as, again, bringing the inflammation where it needs to get to. Now, does that mean that you have to just be in massive amounts of pain all the time? Not necessarily. So if you want to reduce some pain levels, you can do things like arnica is a great homeopathic option that you guys can utilize. Again, you can utilize it in tablet form. I know a brand called Genexa, actually the world's first organic pharmaceutical company that's trying to replace all over-the-counter drugs with safe organic herbs and homeopathic remedies. But Genexa you can get at Walgreens, CVS, you can get it at places like Target, Walmart, all those different places. But anyway, they have arnica, like little pain relief tablets. You could use like, even an arnica gel. But again, that's not involved in actually reducing the inflammation as much as it's involved in an actual pain mechanism, and just making sure that you're resting the injury. But I would let the body do what it's supposed to do, Sonia. Now, if it's one of those where you tear, maybe a ligament in the knee, that's a little bit different as far as the pain levels go. And again, you probably should see, an ortho if it's that big. But if it's something like a minor injury from the gym, again, let your body do what it's supposed to do. Inflammation can be a good thing. Now, in the realm of cancer, right, inflammation can also be a good thing in an acute situation. There's actually been, a proven, and I say proven because, again, obviously, our mainstream medical system did not want this to get through, but there's actually been a proven, basically like a tool used or an approach used or a therapeutic used in the past that actually involved increasing an inflammatory response in the body in order to allow the body to heal, and it was called Cooley's toxins. And so you can read about that and understand that they actually, again, injecting like certain types of bacteria into the actual tumor itself. I believe it was dealing with sarcoma, and again seeing massive, amazing results because the body would then respond with a fever, and again as it's trying to reduce that kind of toxic effect or that infection, again created some inflammatory response that in turn put a lot of people into remission. And again, because that actually worked, I believe it had like a 65, close to 70% success rate. Of course, they're going to take that off of the market just about as fast as they possibly can. And again, they use that through the 40s, 50s, 60s, and saw really good success with it. Cooley's toxins is something that you guys can read about more in depth. But again, it's an example that sometimes inflammatory reaction can be a good thing, right? It increases blood flow, which allows things like natural killer cells and macrophages to get to where it's supposed to. Now, what's the difference between acute inflammation and chronic inflammation? Okay, those are two completely different things. Let me give you an idea. Chronic inflammation, right, is more inflammatory processes around and in your cell, all right? So we're no longer talking about necessarily increasing blood flow to an injury. Now we're talking about your cell membranes are inflamed, right? Your mitochondrial membrane is inflamed. You've got cellular inflammation. This is what chronic inflammation is, okay? So they're two completely different things. And so if somebody has, let's say, something like pain in different parts of the body, like fibromyalgia, and it's been there for years, again, that's an example of chronic inflammation because an acute injury, again, over time should heal and go away. But if you're chronically having issues with headaches or you're chronically having issues with your digestive system, that is where inflammation is not your friend. That is where the bad and the ugly kick in, and that is what we want to actually start to heal and start to rebalance. And again, like I gave you clue about 10 minutes ago, is that the balance between omega-6 and omega-3 is really the key to squashing chronic inflammation and helping your body to have an appropriate acute inflammation reaction to acute injury, all right? So again, it's the balance between omega-6 and omega-3, which I can't wait to get into because this is one of my favorite topics. And really, this is something that kind of flew in the face of what I once thought. about omega-3, because I had heard early on, especially when I started my health journey, I guess this was probably 12 years ago, 13 years ago, the big craze then and even now today was fish oil, right? You got to take fish oil because it increases your omega-3, and omega-3 is so anti-inflammatory to the body. We just need as many omega-3s as we can possibly get into the body. And so I, like everybody else, and maybe like some of you that are listening to my show right now, consume fish oil and consume quite a bit of it because of, everything that I was hearing about fish oil. And then you start to dive into like actual cell physiology and cell biology, and you find out, wait a second, like when you look at your cell membranes, when you look at, what your brain is made of, when you look at like what the lining of your arteries and vessels are made of, and like your endothelial cells, when you look at these things in depth, you start to realize, well, wait a second, maybe having so much omega-3 is not always the best idea if I'm living a healthy lifestyle. Now, let me explain what that means. If you are a person who's still eating a standard American diet, which is mostly processed food, lots of sugar, consuming lots of conventional dairy, lots of wheat, lots of inflammatory foods, lots of fried foods and rancid vegetable oils and all those trans fats. If you are one of those individuals, yeah, your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is completely skewed, and you're probably sitting anywhere from like maybe a 15-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, all the way up to maybe even a 75-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which is highly inflammatory and creating dysfunction and disease inside of the body. We want it around a 3-to-1, 2-to-1 to 4-to-1 ratio. Somewhere around in that area is kind of what we're looking for from an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in order to have a proper acute inflammation response and a proper chronic inflammatory response where our body is actually quelling the inflammation long term. It's all about the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, which I'm going to be getting into right after the break. So I know here, guys, on Wellness Radio, I got to take a quick break, but if you want our help, again, I've told you guys this in the first segment. I give it out at least once each segment because people always ask. If you want to come in and see us and you're local to Chattanooga, hey, we'd love to see you come through our doors so that we can get down to the root cause of your inflammatory issues, whether it's with your lower back, your neck, your headaches, maybe it's something with autoimmune disease, maybe it's an issue with your gut, whatever that is, guys, we like to get down to the root cause. You can give the girls a call. That number is 423-362-5360, 423-362-5360. You can give the girls a call. They're standing by. This is Wellness Radio with Dr. Nathan Warren. I'll be right back after the break. All right, guys, on Facebook Live, my light just went out, so give me 1 second. There we go. It's on a timer, which is super annoying. I don't know why anybody in an office would put their lights on timers, but it is what it is. Anyway, so omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. This is what matters the most. Because again, if we get a balance of omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, we get a proper balance, guys, the way that your cells function, the way that your brain functions, the way that your heart heals, the way that you are able to bind hormones to where they're supposed to bind to, the way that you are supposed to, be insulin sensitive instead of insulin resistant, the way that you can get your thyroid hormone to be more active inside of the cell, the way that you can utilize B vitamins and other vitamins and minerals in the cell, the way that you can move toxins out of the cell, again, is all dependent on that omega-6 to omega-3 ratio and what it actually is inside of the body. And so this kind of takes me back to my whole story on fish oil. Everybody's consuming massive amounts of fish oil, and usually if you look, the people that are consuming a lot of fish oil are usually people that, again, have been, at least somewhat working on their health, working on their diet, because as you guys know and hear me say all the time, again, supplements are there to supplement a healthy lifestyle. they're secondary, right? You know, supplements are there to target something specific, or they're there to, you know, again, help take the place of, as far as like different holes in your nutrition that maybe our modern world has really left out. And so that is what supplementation is there for. So people consume all of this fish oil because they hear, oh, it's good for your heart. Oh, it's good for this. Omega-3 fatty acids are anti-inflammatory. And so if you change that ratio and now your omega-3 is more dominant than your omega-6, that is not a good thing, guys. You are absolutely causing damage on the inside of the body. Let's talk about the importance. Yes, I said the importance of omega-6 fatty acids. Why can omega-6 be important? It's really been vilified and it's been given, you know, such a bad name without actually having an explanation and knowing that there is a major difference between certain omega-6 containing foods or oils. And that's what I want to make sure that I go over in depth today, because this can be a life-changing kind of teaching for you. It's a life-changing, you know, teaching for me when I learned the concepts that there is a specific ratio that we should be shooting for. You know, we want to be looking for that, you know, appropriately. So in the realm of omega-6, it gets a bad name because we know that things like seed oils, industrial seed oils, are very high in omega-6. So yeah, so like if you go to, let's say you go to McDonald's or you go to, you know, Burger King or Wendy's or whatever, you know, fast food restaurant you want to go to, and your food is fried in some of those industrial seed oils, there's no doubt that's high in omega-6. However, we're talking about denatured, damaged fat because of the high heat. These omega-6 oils and these omega-6 fatty acids are usually very sensitive to heat. They're very sensitive to heat. And so they're really only supposed to be consumed in their raw, undenatured form, right? So there's a difference between, you know, eating sunflower seeds, right? And then consuming like a refined sunflower seed oil, right? When we're looking at there's a major difference as far as fat component in there. One of them has been heated up to high temperatures just to be extracted, and again has damaged the fat, whereas another one, right, is still in its whole food form and can be absolutely amazing for building up your cell membranes. So not all omega-6 are created equal. We have to understand this concept, because you need good, proper omega-6 to build up a healthy cell. Let me give you an example. Something like cardiolipin that's involved in cellular death when you need that to happen, because yes, there are times that we need cellular death to happen. It is omega-6. We have to have it. So we're about to go live again. We're going to continue this discussion here in just a second. Again, if I say something that doesn't make sense and you have questions, let me know. Ask a question on here. Hey guys, welcome back to Wellness Radio. I'm your health expert, Dr. Nathan Warren. We are talking all about the good, bad, and ugly of inflammation. And yes, I said the good because there are times where inflammation is a good thing, and I went over that in earlier segments. So if you missed that, get on Facebook, Dr. Warren, and you can actually go back and watch that again. Or you can wait, a week, and it should be on our drswarren.com, where we have archived all of our radio shows on there. We've got blog posts, we've got all kinds of information, or you can just read more about us at drswarren.com. So I've gotten into omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Those of you on the radio, just to kind of catch you up to speed. Again, there is a proper balance of omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. Looking at the way our brain is about a 4-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. When we're looking at, our cell membrane, around a 3 to 4-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. Even when you're looking at let's say the lining of your arteries, did you guys know that is primarily omega-6? It's omega-6 dominant. And so we talk about things like fish oil being so great for the heart, but yet the areas that supply the blood and the oxygen to the heart, or take the blood away, are literally lined with omega-6 fatty acids. So they're omega-6. So again, there is a difference between omega-6 fatty acids that you consume. So when you go out, eat, fast food, and you get, those rancid vegetable oils that they fried, deep fried your chicken tenders in, which again, don't get me wrong, guys, I grew up in the South. Man, I love probably fried chicken just as much as everybody else does. But it's something that I've had to, either step away from or figure out, healthier ways to make it. At home, which I can go over maybe here, in a little bit, but understanding that when you are consuming those vegetable oils or those, industrial seed oils, it's one of the most toxic things that you can do, even more so than the sugar you consume. It is highly, highly inflammatory, but it's inflammatory, again, at the cellular level. So it damages your cell membrane. And so some of you guys have heard me talk about cell membranes in the past, and when you consume even just a small amount of vegetable oil or industrial seed oil, guys, we're talking about literally thousands of tiny fat molecules, bad fat molecules per cell in your body. So it saturates your cell membrane with damaging fat. Now, the more you damage your cell membrane, the more rigid it becomes, the less sensitive your receptors are that bind to your hormones, the less likely you are to get nutrients into the cell and take toxins out. So guess what your cell has to do? Now it has to adapt, right? It's adapting to a bad environment. And so because you can't get nutrients in, because you can't, create an oxygenated environment inside of the cell, you start to, number one, become less efficient at producing ATP and energy. But number two, you also create an environment that has to rely on, again, no oxygen, right? So it's really a hypoxic state there. And it has to rely on, consuming things like your cells are basically getting tons of sugar because of your processed food diet. And so guess what you have? You have an adapted cell that is now what? It's a cancer cell, right? And so we have to recognize that how we build up our cells is literally the key to your health. If you want to reverse disease, if you want to get well, again, at a cellular level, you have to understand this concept that I'm talking about, which is a balance between omega-6 and omega-3. So let's lay that out for everybody right now. Let's talk about what are the bad forms of omega-6 and then what are the good forms of omega-6, all right? So bad forms of omega-6, again, are your industrial seed oils. Things like, like canola oil, things like corn oil, soybean oil, just vegetable oil. These are bad rancid fats. Things like sunflower oil, which again, you actually see in a lot of health food nowadays. Things like, again, safflower oil. These can be very, very high in omega-6, but in order for them to put that into a processed oil, it has damaged those omega-6 fatty acids. It has actually created a denatured, fatty acid there, which is going to damage your cell membrane. Now, on the other side, what are healthy forms of omega-6? So I love using things like, if you guys have never checked it out, if you go on our website, doctorswarren.com, and you go to the shop page, you can actually check it out. It's called Andrea's Seed Oils. Andrea's Seed Oils. And a lot of you guys have heard of things like flaxseed oil, or you've heard of things like, black cumin seed oil, which is, by the way, one of the best ways to reduce chronic inflammation is fill your body with some of these, like black cumin seed oil. Absolutely amazing at quelling chronic inflammation. But Andrea's seed oils are all cold pressed. They've never been heated. They've never been denatured. And it's one of the best ways to start building up your cell membranes and reducing chronic inflammation. Now, it's not the only one out there, but to me, especially in a clinical setting, I'll tell you right now, it's one of the fastest ways that I can start seeing my patients transform their health is by adding in all of these good healthy fats. And Andrea's seed oil is an amazing, weapon against all that damaging inflammation at a cellular level. But they, again, looking at cold pressed, raw, undenatured fatty acids like sunflower seed oil, like flaxseed oil, like black cumin seed oil, like coriander seed oil. Again, it can actually be fantastic in its raw, undenatured form or in its food form. So we know that consuming things like maybe it's, raw sprouted sunflower seeds or pumpkin seeds or hemp seeds or chia seeds. Again, they don't just contain omega-3 fatty acids. They also, because again, they're from a natural form, contain a certain amount of omega-6 fatty acids as well. And so when you consume those, you're really getting nature's natural balance of good fatty acids. And so we want to make sure that we're consuming those in an undenatured state. So that is why I do like to consume things like, raw nuts and seeds, again, in their undenatured state there. So if you're consuming vegetable oils, I will tell you this right now, it is the number one thing that is going to damage your cell membranes and lead to things like chronic inflammation, lead to things like autoimmune conditions, lead to things like, chronic disease like cancer and heart disease. Even more so than sugar, which again gets vilified a lot, it's getting this balance of omega-6 to omega-3 ratio correct. So when I say that omega-6 is important, that is one of the reasons why one of the first supplements that I get my patients off of almost immediately is fish oil. And sometimes it's controversial to people because they've been taking fish oil forever, and their first 6 months of taking it for their joint pain, they saw improvements there, or they saw improvements in maybe in their cholesterol numbers with their heart doctor, and they're like, no, doctor, I saw the changes, I know it helped. And usually what you find is, it helped initially, right, when your diet was still, completely imbalanced between omega-6 and omega-3, where it was too high. And so initially you saw some benefit there. You saw some help. You saw your inflammation go down because you're increasing your omega-3 and you're changing that overall ratio there. But over time, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and changing your lifestyle and your diet, and again, you cut out those rancid, vegetable oils, you cut out those fried foods that you're consuming that are fried in things like corn oil and soybean oil and all that kind of junk, and canola oil, which people still tout as a health food that is nowhere near a health food. It's actually a health bomb. Again, if you're cutting those things out and you're changing your lifestyle, guess what? Now your omega-6 to omega-3 really starts to balance out. And again, you no longer need that high amount of omega-3 in the body. Now, fish oil, here's another problem that I have with it, that again, I think will surprise a lot of people. If you look at the warmest, the warmest fish that you're going to find, as far as the water that it's in, you may be looking at 72 to 75 degrees. Your body is naturally around 97 to 99 degrees, which means when you consume that oil, again, you're going to see some rancidity there. You're going to see your body actually create a rancid environment for those fatty acids. And so one study actually looked at salmon because, everybody says, well, what about salmon? It's loaded with omega-3s. They actually showed that, again, when you cook your salmon and you actually cook down some of the skin and you cook down, that it actually reduces some of the omega-3 effect, and you get a better balance of omega-6 and omega-3, which is why it could be healthier for your heart. So it's not just about consuming high amounts of omega-3, it's about finding the balance and consuming real healthy food. So I got to go on another quick break. Guys, if you want our help, you can always give the girls a call. That number is 423-362-5360. Again, that's 423-362-5360. And again, you can get set up with an appointment with myself or Dr. Rebecca, either online or in our office, and we can help you get down to the root cause of your health issues. This is Wellness Radio with Dr. Nathan Warren. I'll be right back after the break. All right, so we got a couple questions here. Let's see. Kelly said, CBD oil gets rid of inflammation. Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of again, things like hemp oil, CBD oil. I think it's a great thing. I think it matters the quality big time, because like I went into oh man, I can't even remember there's like a CBD store here in the south side of Chattanooga that we walked into, probably 9 months ago, 10 months ago. And like I literally looked at the ingredients, I couldn't even believe it. I mean, they had like food coloring in their kids supplements. Like they had like literally red dye and yellow dye, and I'm like, what the heck? Like you're selling CBD like it's this healthy thing, and yet you're loading your own supplements with crap. Like I would never even let I'd never even let an animal consume that, let alone a human being. So quality definitely matters. And there's a lot of really good quality ones out there. But again, yeah, so CBD, oil can be a great one. I know Andrea's Seed Oils just made a new one. I know Quicksilver Scientific, that's the one we use at home. That's a liposomal CBD delivery, which we like a lot. There's other great ones out there too. I know a more local one is like Cat's Naturals, which is phenomenal. I know that there's a couple great places around Chattanooga that you can get it as well too. So again, yeah, I think that's great, Kelly. Thanks for that information. Turmeric can also help, right? It depends, right? So most of the studies that show that turmeric is beneficial are at literally therapeutic doses. So the majority of supplements that you guys are taking with turmeric aren't even touching the inflammation that you have in the body. It's not even close, mainly because of its absorption and because it's just not enough, right? So that's the problem when you look at studies is people say, oh, here's the headline, turmeric helps to squash inflammation, but then you start to read it and you're like, holy cow, that's a massive amount. That's like the bottle that you just paid $60 for, you're gonna finish it in 5 days because you're taking such a high amount. So there's ways to make it more absorbable. Things like surrounded by fat, so like a liposomal form, of curcumin, which is going to be your more active form in the turmeric to really squash some inflammation. So I do like it in certain forms, Kelly. I think it can be a great thing. Or using turmeric like in your everyday use, right? Like so maybe you making turmeric tea, or you're using turmeric to spice your foods and using it on a daily kind of lifestyle base, because most of the time when you put it on food, there's going to be good healthy fat there with it to help deliver those nutrients as well. So again, if it's in the right form and it's highly absorbed, don't think of turmeric as a panacea, but think of it as something that can really help you overall, which I think would be really, really good. Let's see, we had another question here. How do I search your products on Amazon? So I believe if you go to our store on our website, go to doctorswarren.com, we have a link to our Amazon store. You just click on the Amazon store. It'll take you through everything that we've kind of picked out as far as what we think is great purchases off of Amazon. So go to doctorswarren.com. There's a shop place right there, and then you'll see like our Amazon recommendations there. And we go through whether it's food, supplements, tools for your kitchen, maybe it's air or water purifier, whatever it is. We kind of go through all of that. So check that out and let me know if for some reason you still can't find it in that. Let's see. We've got a couple more questions here that I'm going to try to answer. If I can get it to pull up. There we go. Which we'll be able to, I'll probably answer those, Kelly, after we're done with the radio show here. So give me 1 second. All right, guys, welcome back to Wellness Radio. I am your health expert, Dr. Nathan Warren. I've been talking all about inflammation today, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because again, yes, there are times where it is good to have inflammation. An acute injury, does it feel good? No, it does not, right? But it's there for a reason. Pain has a purpose. It always does. I know that none of us, I'm just like you. I don't want to be in pain 24/7 all the time. But again, I know initially if I sprain my ankle, the pain is supposed to be there. The pain, again, there's a purpose behind the pain. Or if you have pressure, like again, on something like, let's say your sciatic nerve that's coming out of maybe your L4, L5, nerve root right there, and you have pressure on that and you've got pain going down your leg, that pain has a purpose. Why? Because we also know that area of your nervous system also supplies things like your lower digestive system. We know it supplies things like, if you're a man, your prostate, if, men or women, your bladder, your female and male reproductive organs. So we know that area of the nervous system is vitally important. If you didn't have the pain, you wouldn't know that you have a problem. So again, pain has a purpose. I promise you that. Now, chronic inflammation does not, and that's all based on your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio plays the biggest role in that area there. So we've talked about some things to do. Number one, cut out the rancid vegetable oils. I say that all the time, and I'll say that till the day I die, because those things are not fit for human consumption, period. At any time, they're really not, they're absolutely damaging to the body. Now, what can we do instead, right? So what are some of the things that we can do? I know everybody likes to hear about, certain supplements. I think from a food standpoint, consuming things like, raw sprouted nuts and seeds that contain a really great ratio of omega-6 to omega-3, even things like hemp seeds and chia seeds and, things like, flax seeds that you grind yourself or that you get cold pressed like flaxseed oil, hemp seed oil, those type of things. Even utilizing things like Andrea's seed oils, like I mentioned before. Consuming things like even avocados contain good healthy fat. We know that pasture-raised eggs contain good healthy fat. Grass-fed beef and things like bison and lamb, these can be like a perfect, 2-to-1 ratio, 3-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, which are highly anti-inflammatory for your body. We know even in forms of things like raw dairy, even things like, maybe it's raw butter you get from or grass-fed butter you get from the grocery store, raw butter you get from a farmer, things like, even raw milk, goat's milk, those type of things, sheep's milk, they can be really, really good ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. So we want to make sure we're consuming lots of that. Things like olive oil, things like avocado oil, again, these are phenomenal to actually cook with. And yes, I said olive oil, yes, you can actually cook with it. I told you guys in a past kind of rant on the radio probably, maybe 4 or 5 months ago that I was wrong about really good quality olive oil that's freshly pressed, again, within the last 6 months, that is made from, really, really high quality olives, and it's made the way it's supposed to. Extra virgin olive oil can actually be cooked with and without it going bad and without it going rancid. But consuming lots of these can be really, really healthy for the overall body. From a supplemental standpoint, what can you do? I really like something called Pureform Omegas, which are all cold pressed oils that are coming from plant-based. So again, like coconut oil, hemp oil, things like flaxseed oil, borage oil, evening primrose oil. It's a perfect balance of omega-6 to omega-3 per body weight. That is a fantastic supplement. I also think of Vista 1 and Vista 2 by Systemic Formulas, which is on our store, guys, if you go to drswarren.com. Vista 1 and Vista 2 work on healing the cell membrane and the mitochondrial membrane, both, again, to get the cell healthy and well. Phosphatidylcholine is another one. So again, these are things that you guys can utilize on a regular basis to build up your defense against chronic inflammation. So again, guys, this has been Wellness Radio. If you guys want our help, I know Mary Beth is standing by. She can get you guys set up for an appointment in the office or online. That number is 423-362-5360. Again, that's 423-362-5360. 5360. You can give her a call. Also, be sure to go on our website, check out drswarren.com. Go on our Facebook, like and follow our page, Doctors Warren, so that way you can stay up to date with all the latest and greatest information. This, guys, has been Wellness Radio. We'll see you next time. Wellness Radio. All right, guys, so I know I've got some questions here that I want to get to, but hopefully that made sense from a fat level. I want to make sure that you guys understand what I mean when I'm talking about omega-6 to omega-3. So I gave you guys some information on supplements that you can use, on food that you can use, but really the primary source is get it from your food. And then again, most of you guys have had some damage to your cells for years, so start that process. And also remember this, guys, when you are resetting and healing yourself at a cellular level and at the cell membrane level, it takes time. It takes time. Let me give you an example. We know that there's been one study, for example, that has shown that you get about 132 days of cell dysfunction when you consume rancid vegetable oils one time. 132 days of cell dysfunction, which means what, guys? It's going to take time, right? So you got to give yourself some grace and you got to just start making those changes. So we always tell our patients, number one change you can make are the oils that you're cooking with, right? And the oils that you're consuming at home. That's the number one health change that you guys can make right now, and you may have already made that. So then what can you do to start building it up? Again, eating a whole food based diet. We usually recommend something like a lower carb paleo diet is fantastic. Some of you guys need to go above and beyond and really hit more of a clean ketogenic diet that's full of good healthy fats, both animal based and both plant based, fats, and consuming lots and lots of that, and lower your sugar levels all together, so that way you have a good blood glucose to insulin ratio there. And then if you need to supplement what we went over, Andrea seed oils are my favorite. You guys can use them, your kids can use them. Absolutely fantastic for quelling chronic inflammation. You can use a combination, and I would actually tell you guys, go read about it, go learn about it. Again, it's just phenomenal what they've done over there with Andrea seed oils. Or you can use something like Pureform Omega or Vista 1 and Vista 2 by Systemic Formulas. These are all great options for helping to reduce cellular inflammation and really building up your cell membranes. I talked about phosphatidylcholine, so like PC oil. Now just recognize if they're not in capsule, if you're taking it in liquid form, it's kind of like drinking motor oil, or at least that's what it tastes like, kind of gross. But it's absolutely amazing for your healthy cell membranes. You can use things like sunflower lecithin, right? Sunflower lecithin can be used in like your shakes and your smoothies. Just a little bit in there can help emulsify your fat or your nutrients into basically a liposomal form, especially if you add another good healthy oil to it, like maybe avocado oil or MCT oil. That combining with the sunflower lecithin will help deliver your nutrients in a liposomal form. So again, things like pastured egg yolks, absolutely one of the most amazing, combinations of fat to help build up your cell membranes on the planet. So even, for a lot of people, as they're trying to heal their body in an initial state, I'll tell them, hey, I want you to add some raw pastured egg yolks to your smoothies and to your shakes, because it will help to build up the cell membrane, because it's just so loaded with all of those good healthy fats overall. Now, I wanted to answer these last couple questions here. Kelly said, dry mouth issues, suggestions for that. So listen, dry mouth is always going to come from like an imbalance of pH in the mouth itself, right? So you want to use things that are going to help balance the pH of the mouth. So we always recommend, like, there's certain oral probiotics that again help to build up the bacteria in the mouth. So a good example of that would be like a toothpaste called Revitin. Revitin, Revitin, is a prebiotic and probiotic toothpaste that you can use every single night that will help to break down the biofilm of bacteria buildup, and it helps to keep the pH balanced, right? The pH balance. Another one that we use at home, like our kids will use, it's like a mouth rinse by like Nano Silver, and it's got like some silver particles in it and things like that. But the whole goal is to balance the pH of the mouth. If you balance the pH of the mouth, you're able to see a reduction in dry mouth. And then there's probiotics that are ENT, ear, nose, and throat, that you can utilize as well. And I believe one of them is by Biotics Research, has a good ear, nose, and throat probiotic lozenges that you can help to balance out, again, the acidity of the mouth. And you'll see phenomenal results with dry mouth. Let's see here. We see, again, dealing with sinus infections and issues there, mucus issues. Guys, the way to deal with that, you've got to cleanse the actual sinus area first. I know there's a world-renowned ear, nose, and throat doctor in Atlanta, and he primarily, his main thing that he does on a regular basis with people with chronic sinus issues and sinus infection issues is he has to go in and they will surgically remove things like fungal balls, like actual mold sources in the sinus cavity, because the majority of you guys with chronic sinus issues have an issue with mold and fungal issues actually in your sinus cavity. So you've got to clear that out. So you can do that with something like a Sinugator, right, is a great one that actually flushes it out. So it's like a neti pot on steroids that works even better. And so you can use that Sinugator and you can use it with things like organic citrus essential oils, things like a saline solution. Just make sure the water is purified. You do not want to use tap water at all when you're cleansing out the nasal cavity, and be consistent with it. So you may have to start with doing one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and again, follow through with that for about 6 to 8 months and watch how your sinuses literally it starts to change your life. If you start to, again, get rid of the main source, which is actually stuck in your sinus cavity itself. That's the number one way to reduce chronic sinus infections and sinus issues, is get rid of the actual mold source in your sinus cavity. So Sinugator, there's an essential oil called Agrumax, Agrumax, that's like organic citrus essential oils, along with the saline solution that you can rinse out, again, the sinus cavity with. Aaron, good to see you, Aaron. Hope you're doing fantastic. Hope your family is too. It says, sorry, joined late here. So taking omega supplements is not a good idea? No, omega supplements are a good idea if it's balanced omega supplements. So if it's just fish oil, no, I would not consume just fish oil, because again, you're talking about majority of that is omega-3, and the majority of that, when you put it into your body, which is a much higher temperature, about 20 to 30 degrees higher than what like a fish is going to be, which is basically that oil is antifreeze for the fish. Again, it's going to be more rancid inside of your body. So utilize omega supplements that are balanced with omega-6 and omega-3. So like with kids, I'm a big fan of using something called Brainy Play. We use that with our kids at home. It's by Systemic Formulas. And Brainy Play contains things like algae oil, which does not, that withstands heat, and it's much better as far as absorption and the way it works inside of the body. But it's balanced with things like borage seed oil. It's balanced with things like evening primrose oil. It's got hemp seed oil, flaxseed oil. So again, it's got all of those really good healthy balance of omega-6 to omega-3. For kids, that's a great one. Or for adults, you can use something like Pure Form Omega, and you can use that for kids too if they can take capsules. But Pure Form Omega is going to be it's plant-based, but it's all raw and cold-pressed oils within the capsule, and they even use like a little nitrogen bubble in there to preserve again those fats, so that they're in their raw state. Or use Andreas seed oils. Those are my favorite ones to use. And get plenty of omegas in your diet by eating lots of raw nuts and seeds, eating things like wild caught fish and seafood. These are all great that you can consume. So omega supplements are not bad. It just depends on the form that we're getting. So we want to make sure that we're getting really high quality omega-6, omega-3 balance there. And again, there's other omegas too, like omega-7, omega-9. But again, if you're consuming those cold pressed, raw, omega-6, omega-3 sources, they also have the omega-7 and omega-9 in it. So that's why it always comes down to, again, our diet and making sure that it's balanced, that you're consuming, more of a whole food based diet, and not a lot of the rancid vegetable oil. So hopefully that helps answer your question there as well. So again, guys, thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I hope you get to love on your family, celebrate with your family, or maybe some of you guys just need to rest, and I hope you get that rest as well. I will see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.